disruption. Drier elsewhere, just a few showery outbreaks of rain, sleet and hill snow here and there. Maybe some glimmers of sunshine, particularly towards the west, and temperatures for most on the low side. A chilly, cold day generally, especially in the north. Another cold day to come as we go into Saturday. Mostly dry, mostly bright for many places. Some showery bursts towards the west and also towards the east. Then worth bearing in mind later on as we go through the weekend, while Sunday starts dry and largely cold, we are going to see a weather system coming in from the west, and as that bashes into that cold air that we have across us, well, there's the potential for some further disruptive snow. We'll have more on that nearer the time. That's it for me. I'll see you again soon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. In Stockton-on-Tees, the A19 northbound has a broken down vehicle between the A1027 and the A689, with one lane closed. Northamptonshire's M1 northbound is also restricted between junction 18 and junction 19 after a breakdown, with two lanes shut. On the M4 westbound near Wokingham, between junction 11 and junction 12, a crash is blocking one lane and adding around 10 minutes. In Welshpool, the A458 is affected both ways by an incident, with local diversions. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Chiltern Railways warn Storm Goretti may affect journeys. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's a brand new year and we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize to date.
£85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
And we've come to the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Well, it would appear that quite a lot of councils will be taking up the government's offer and cancelling elections. Up to 10 million people could have their vote denied, in some cases for the second year in a row. Are we turning into a banana republic? What price? Our democracy. A dramatic U-turn is coming from the government on pubs. I've got to tell you, I love this government's U-turns. I support nearly every one of them. And though I'm not wearing a black tie, I probably ought to be, because we will talk to Monty Panesar about our absolute thrashing in the Ashes, down under, against Australia, and ask, is this the end of Bazball and maybe the captaincy of the man you see on our screen right now? All of that and more, but first, let's get the news with Katie Bowen.
Nigel, thank you and good evening. The headlines at 7 o'clock.
A rare red weather warning has been issued for parts of England as Storm Goretti bears down on the UK. Winds are expected to suddenly surge, potentially reaching 100 miles an hour later this evening, with the Met Office warning there's a danger to life. All train services in Cornwall have now been suspended, with severe disruption expected to travel, power supplies and mobile networks. Forecasters say Goretti is rapidly intensifying into a so-called weather bomb, with rare red wind warnings also in force for Jersey and avalanche alerts issued for Snowdon in Wales. Live pictures on your screen if you're watching on television in Cornwall. More on that developing situation with the weather throughout the evening. Elsewhere, the Prime Minister has spoken to US President Donald Trump and the Prime Minister of Denmark today on the issue of Greenland. The leaders discussed Euro-Atlantic security and agreed on the need to deter an increasingly aggressive Russia in the High North. To President Trump, the Prime Minister said that European allies had stepped up in recent months to defend Euro-Atlantic interests, but more could be done to protect the area. It comes as Downing Street confirmed yesterday that the UK helped the United States seize a Russian-flagged oil tanker in an operation discussed between Keir Starmer and President Trump. Speaking from the White House a short while ago, Vice President J.D. Vance said that President Trump stands with all law enforcement officers after a woman was fatally shot by a US immigration agent in Minneapolis. The Department of Homeland Security says 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good was a violent rioter who tried to run over immigration and customs enforcement officers. They claim the agent fired in self-defense. But local leaders have flatly rejected that account. Protests have erupted in the city throughout today. Speaking a short while ago, Vice President J.D. Vance hit out at reporting of the incident, saying Miss Good's death was a tragedy of her own making.
This was an attack on federal law enforcement. This was an attack on law and order. This was an attack on the American people. Media wants to tell the truth. They ought to tell the truth that a group of left-wing radicals have been working tirelessly, sometimes using domestic terror techniques to try to make it impossible for the President of the United States to do what the American people elected him to do, which is enforce our immigration laws. The President stands with ICE. I stand with ICE. We stand with all of our law enforcement officers.
And ministers are preparing to U-turn on business rates for pubs, with fresh support expected to be announced in the coming days, GB News understands. The industry had been bracing for steep rises after plans were unveiled to end COVID-era discounts, prompting warnings that many pubs simply wouldn't survive. Now, government sources say a new package is coming, likely to include rates relief and cuts to licensing red tape after an outcry from landlords. Cabinet Minister Pat McFadden says ministers recognise how economically and culturally important pubs are, but Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch says the move is too little, too late. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nigel.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
In May last year, a number of English county councils did not hold the elections they were due after the four-year term. We were assured at the time by the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner it would simply be a one-year delay, all because of local government reorganisation. And once again in November, when questions were asked of the House, we were told, no, the elections will go ahead. And then suddenly, on the 18th of December, Minister Alison McGovern said this in the House of Commons.
Councils are telling us that where capacity is a problem, postponement would free up resources to be concentrated on local government reorganisation and the delivery of good services. To be clear, should a council say that they have no reason to delay their elections, there will be no delay. If a council voices genuine concerns, we will take these issues seriously and would be minded to grant a delay in those areas.
So basically, if you've served 4 years, or in the case of those delayed last year, 5 years, you don't fancy an election? Well, we'll just postpone it. No problem at all. Well, immediately after that, on December the 19th, James Cleverly came out for the Conservative Party with a sense of outrage.
We should not be cancelling elections. Elections are the foundation stone of democracy, and we absolutely should not be cancelling elections. What we've seen is the Labour government both arrogant and naive and cocky, thinking they can completely restructure English local government.
Well, good to see some principle back in politics, or so I thought, until 2 hours later, when Conservative-controlled East and West Sussex county councils, despite having cancelled last year, announced they'd cancel again this year. Well, Kemi Badenoch was questioned on this today.
Some Conservative leaders have done that. They've said that they're trying to save taxpayers' money by stopping them from having 2 elections in quick successions. They're going to have to explain that. I think they should have those elections. But what you have with me is somebody who works as part of a team. I'm not a dictator. I do want to see elections happen. We are up for them. The public need to have their voices heard. It is our policy nationally to have elections where we can. But I also respect the mandate. They have their own mandates. They have their own democratic mandate. And it is when you start seeing people not respecting the democratic mandate, it's weak people who do that.
The democratic mandate has run out. Surely that's the point. Well, could up to 10 million people lose their vote? I'm joined in the studio by Sir Michael Ellis and Nigel Nelson. But first, I'm going to go to Theo Usherwood, freelance political journalist. Theo, you're a great student of political history. I know in 2021, during the pandemic, there were delays to elections. But has anything like this on this scale ever happened before?
We haven't had it on this scale before. So we're looking at 10 million people right across the board in terms of elections. And if you look at actually, there are 2 things to bear in mind here, right? Is the reason that Alison McGovern gave in the House of Commons, indeed, a continuation of what the Deputy Prime Minister at the time, Angela Rayner, said with the first delay, that actually councils can't manage the situation of doing the reorganisation and holding elections at the same time, and therefore needs to delay the election. Is that a legitimate reason? Or is there a case that in the case of many of these Labour and Conservative councils, indeed there's some Lib Dem councils as well, that they're running scared, that they're worried that there are going to be these local elections, and having seen what happened in last May's local elections and, of course, the threat of your party, Nigel, on reform, actually they're going, hang on a moment, this isn't something we want to vote for, because if we vote for this, if we go ahead with these local elections and there's a vote, then we're all going to be out of a job and we're going to have to find something else to do. And I think that perhaps one of the things that I found most interesting about the table, this is Daily Telegraph research, I should say, that one of the most interesting aspects of this table is with the Liberal Democrats. And actually, the majority of Liberal Democrat councils haven't delayed. They're going ahead with the elections. And of course, why is that? Because they've got nothing to worry about, because they're the polar opposite of reform. Look at what happened down in Devon, for example, last time round. There's a split with the old parties of Labour and the Conservatives getting squeezed out, and a new dynamic evolving between Reform and the Liberal Democrats. And if you look at the evidence, just at what is available from the Telegraph in terms of the research they've done, it's pretty apparent that where there have been delays, like in East Sussex and West Sussex, that it's not necessarily because they're worried about, trying to do 2 things at once and the cost to the taxpayer, but actually there's a suspicion that democracy is being, put on hold or denied, depending on your point of view, and actually there is a delay because these councils don't, these councillors, whether they're Conservative or Tory, Conservative or Labour, I should say, are worried that they're simply going to be out of a job.
Well, in the case of Sussex, it may well be that those that were elected in 2021 as Conservatives, when the party was riding on the crest of a wave, that they will serve 7 years, not 4 years. Yeah. I wonder, is there anything? I mean, if this was America, we'd be protected by a constitution. Yeah. And if they start postponing elections on whatever excuse they're using, is there anything effectively that the public can do?
No, but it is interesting, it's not just the political parties and who are concerned about this. Indeed, the Electoral Commission, I seem to remember, I have a new job, by the way, Nigel, I'm working as a news editor at the Press Association, I should just add. So I'm seeing lots of stories coming in, and I have to be impartial and balanced, of course. But I do remember a story coming in from the Electoral Commission, which is, of course, the body which oversees elections. And they said only in exceptional circumstances should elections be delayed. That's the Electoral Commission. That's not Reform or the Liberal Democrats or anybody of any political persuasion. So there is precedents, and we saw it with the pandemic as well, where elections were delayed simply because the idea of having people queuing outside town, village halls and schools when everybody was suffering from the pandemic. There was a need to delay, and there was a fear that the virus could spread. But only in exceptional circumstances is there meant to be a delay. And there is an important, just one final thing. There is an important reason why you have political terms of 5 years. If you're a Reform or Liberal Democrats or Tories, you set out a mandate to do something. You tell the public, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to have 5 years to do it in. And at the moment, that cycle has come to an end, and those councillors have to go back to the public and say, this is what we've done or what we failed to do, and now you have a vote. And there is a danger that if you simply delay it, the hope is that Reform or the Liberal Democrats, their vote will start to fall down, and then you can find your way back in. And that isn't democracy.
No, Theo, thank you very much indeed. Good luck with the new job, and thanks for coming on. Nigel, I spoke to Bob Russell, former veteran Liberal Democrat MP from Colchester. He said the last big local government reorganisation was in 1973, but nobody talked about suspending elections. In fact, the elections became part of the debate about what shape local government should take. There's no real excuse for this, is there?
Well, yes, there is. Well, there's a reason for it, and I think this was always going to happen. The mistake that Labour made was to underestimate the complexities of local government reorganisation.
So how was it possible in 73 to continue and not now?
We're doing a different system, obviously.
We were in 73.
Because we're now having unitary authorities. But the problems they're facing, apart from the really complicated ones like how social care services will work under the new system, which is causing headaches everywhere, to things that look simple but are hard to resolve. So, for instance, if two district councils were going to become a unitary, and one has a council tax of £100 a month, and the other one £150 a month, there is a problem about deciding how you're going to divvy up council tax without upsetting an awful lot of people.
Right. So if come the next general election it's complicated, should we just postpone that for a few years?
Well,
I mean, does voting actually matter?
I mean, the next general election...
7 years these people will have served.
I agree that the preference, obviously, is to have a vote rather than not have a vote. But at the moment, if things now go according to plan, you'll start getting shadow authorities coming in by next year.
Or maybe not.
And then...
Or maybe not.
Well, if they have another problem, maybe
anymore?
not. No, I mean, that's the other difficulty. If it's still complicated by next year, there'll be another problem we'll be facing.
I tell you what they're planning is such a dog's dinner, it will be complicated. Michael, this just looks like, from the three parties, the most cynical exercise in politics
from Labour,
I think I've ever seen.
Nigel, this is outrageous. It's totally undemocratic. It's avoiding electoral scrutiny. I mean, Nigel's got a good effort there, but frankly, even Labour, their excuse for doing this is to give the councils a bit more time. There's sort of this waffle-like excuse. It has to be
It could be 22 Labour councils, nearly all in the north of England, and they will have lost nearly all of them.
Yes, and the Telegraph done some good work on this, and they've said that many of them they would have lost if those elections go ahead.
Yeah.
So you have to say, they're postponing these, they're putting them off for 7-year terms. A lot of these councillors will be getting because they're worried about losing. And the Telegraph found 22 Labour councils, only 2 Tory councils to be fair, but they've still got some time, all of these councils, to decide.
The cut-off point is midnight next Wednesday.
Yeah, so we'll get some more results. But 22 Labour councils said they want to postpone, only 4 said no, 2 Tory councils, 7 said no. I think Kemi Badenoch was right about what she said there. This is about getting on with it. Those councils should get on with it. That's the right thing to do. What was the word that Margaret Thatcher used when people are scared? What was that?
Frit.
Frit. F-R-I-T. I think they're scared.
So when the Tories come out and say, we are the party of democracy, and then their own councils delay elections, what do we... Well, for the second year in a row...
Well, but there's only 2. There's only 2 that have said...
if you live in Sussex...
2 as opposed to 22.
Michael Ellis says if you live in Sussex, you can go to hell.
I do.
You may never vote again.
I love Sussex. Look, let me tell you. No, I mean, I think, to be fair, the leader of the party, Tory party, did say they should get on with it. But, out of 22 Labour councils saying no, only 2 Tory ones. But I will say this. I know you like history. General election... 1935 general election. They didn't have another general election until 1945.
Yeah.
10 years, and there was a pretty good reason, I think anyone would agree, that was World War II.
But we,
that.
well, now that's true. But
what's the reason?
But we did have a general election whilst we were still at war with Japan.
Yes, that's right. But of course, 35 to 45, a 10-year term.
Yeah, it was.
That's the sort of... And you look, for example, at other democracies.
But this is not comparable.
No, it isn't. Of course it's not.
The Nazi invasion.
No, of course it isn't. That's my point. That's my point. That's a good reason not to have an election. You know, just getting a few quangos to do a few more reports is not a good reason to put off elections. So you look at Israel, for example. They've been at war for a couple of years. They've got a general election this year. They don't talk about that. Other democracies get on with it. So this is about millions of votes being denied.
Can you see, Nigel, why people are... And I'm going to come back to Sussex.
OK.
Because this is the second year in a row that this has happened. I mean, can you just see why there's such disenchantment with politics?
Yes, I can. And as I said, I think that voters always deserve an election if it's at all possible. But if you're in a situation where councils are simply not ready for the reorganisation... Look, take our council in Kent, where we both live. So you've got a situation there where the proposal is for 4 unitaries to get rid of all the districts. But at the moment, the reform leadership of Kent County Council, they're talking about 1 unitary for the whole of Kent. Now, we haven't worked out how to go about doing that. Now, OK, we haven't got any elections there now, but even so, it just shows, again, the complications of trying to do this.
Maybe best it was all left alone. I don't know. Well, I have to say, I think the whole thing is very, very cynical indeed. And, you know, if the elections in Kent went ahead last year, why didn't they over the water in Essex? I mean, there's no logic to any of this. None whatsoever. In a moment, one of my favourite subjects, well, actually, one that enrages me, debanking. Can you believe the numbers of people being debanked have reached record highs? Many of you watching this will have been debanked. We'll tease the reasons why.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, I think I'm probably the most high-profile case of debanking ever. This happened back in 2023 at the height of the summer, and it kind of dominated the newspapers for week after week until I managed to get rid of the chief executive of NatWest and the chief executive of their subsidiary, Coutts. Now, I was made a number of promises from the government of the day. I did my best with the FCA, the Bank of England. I tried to argue that having a bank account actually is a right in the modern world. It's as important as running water and electricity. And some modest changes will come into effect in a few months' time, but not the right to have a bank account, as you would have in France or Belgium or many other countries. But just have a look, since I was debanked, at the number of people who've suffered this. The graph just goes up and up and up. And within the last year, nearly 500,000 accounts have been closed. Now, these are either business or personal. And why is it happening? Well, I'll tell you. The reasons given are financial crime reasons. An unusual transaction comes into your business account, your personal account. And because of the money laundering rules, the banks have to go through such an expensive and extensive process to try and source the money that it's cheaper for them to simply close the account. Do we want to stop money laundering? Well, there's one or two barber shops in high streets I suggest might be a better place to look, but hey. And that really is the reason. And we're using a sledgehammer to miss the nut. Because actually, for every £100 spent on compliance in banking in Britain to discover money laundering, you get £1 back for every £100. Michael Ellis, I did talk at length with your government about this.
Yeah.
I found the Minister, Andrew Griffith, incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
But we're not making any progress, are we?
Look, this is outrageous. And the idea that 500,000 people in this country are involved in financial crime is crazy. Of course they're not. The numbers are enormous. You've hit the nail on the head. The reason for this is the regulations are so onerous on the banks. They're so risk-averse. It's also the mentality of risk aversion. Just like police and quangos and everybody else, it's like just easier to say, we don't want you, kick them out, rather than actually investigate something that their computer, their algorithm says is a little irregular. It's almost certainly got an innocent explanation. I think also part of the reason for all of this is form filling. Banks now require their customers to fill out all of these forms.
Wow.
Some elderly people maybe miss doing that or they get it wrong. People are just being thrown out of banks. I think it should be a right, and it's gone badly wrong. And this is a reputational issue for banks, because I want to say this, Nigel. If banks are properly regulated, why isn't it possible, when a little old lady is defrauded from her savings by a real scam artist, why can't they then tell where that money has gone from her account into somebody else's account? Why is it just then,
Well,
not
I think in
found?
some cases they do, but there's an irony to this, that we've had about 4 major European Union directives on money laundering. And this is the result, or our interpretation.
Yeah.
I don't think the Italians are quite doing this in the same way, are they? What is it about the British will make everything worse?
Well, I mean, I think that both of you are right, that we should have a legal right to a bank account. An awful lot of countries do it. You mentioned France and Belgium, Denmark, Canada, Germany, they do it. There is a payment accounts directive in the EU which says you must have a basic account. That said, I think that one of the reasons that we haven't noticed it is no one talked about it till you did. I was unaware of this as a scandal. When you actually brought it up back in 23, I talked to a lot of other politicians and discovered that they'd been debanked as well.
Or their children.
And their children.
Or their grandchildren.
That's right. Relatives as well have been debanked. And they didn't feel it was politically expedient to say that this had happened to them, because everyone would think, oh my God, they're fraudsters. So people didn't know about it.
And also, you fear saying you'd be debanked, A, because people might think you're dodgy, but
That's
B,
right.
what will it do to my credit rating?
Yeah.
What will it do to my ability to open other accounts? It was funny, actually, because the notes that I got with my subject access request, the conclusion, Coots's conclusion on me, was that my views did not align with those of the bank. Well, I thought they were a bank, but hey. And then they said, the risk of this, no, he'd be too embarrassed to go public. They picked the wrong bloke, didn't they?
They did. But an awful lot of your colleagues in the House of Commons didn't go public about it. And that's the reason this scandal has grown.
And all political parties, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, mine was pretty overt in my case.
Yes.
But we want good people to go into public life.
That's right.
And you know, you've been through the mill, you know, staying up at the dispatch box. And,
Yep,
you know,
you might say that.
You've been through it all. But, you know, you're big enough and ugly enough to do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I don't know about ugly enough, but I am certainly big enough.
You know what I mean. But if people are going to be going into public life think this could affect their grandkids, it puts good people off going into public life.
No, you're absolutely...
Let alone everybody else is being
Oh, totally. There are several reasons why you wouldn't go into public life. Now, we get the politicians we deserve. They're already seeing a huge amount of threats. They see abusive emails and messages. There are threats to lives. Banking is made difficult. There are so many issues now which are a real problem. It puts people off, puts good people off going into politics. It shouldn't do that.
No. And the other point, and I'm going to mention small business here, Nigel. You know, for a small business, a start-up small business, to open a bank account can take months.
Yeah, and it shouldn't happen that way. And even if you're an individual, you can't get a mobile phone without it. You can't get broadband without it. And if you look at what other countries do, the French system is, if you're not given an account and you appeal, they have to give you that account within 3 days. So those things are done quickly. We just don't have the same rights that they have in other countries.
And isn't it funny, because the FCA was set up, the Financial Conduct Authority, as it now is, it's been through various incarnations, was set up to protect private individuals.
Precisely.
And they appear to me not to have lifted a finger on this.
Yeah, it's protecting the banks from being blamed for something. That's what it's currently doing.
That is the point.
And really what ought to happen is there ought to be the law, as you say, that everyone should have a bank account, because that would then provide legal protection to the banks. If it's a requirement that everyone has to be given a bank account, then the banks are protected, because they can say to the authorities, well, we have to let them have a bank account because it's the law. And if they want to then investigate any irregularity, that's what they should do.
Well, final thought from me on this, folks. Is it any wonder, with this sort of thing going on, that now 7 million people in this country own digital assets or cryptocurrencies in some form because they feel they can't be debanked, they can't be got at? Now, the Treasury would like me to read this out to you. All right, go on then. Debanking is wrong, really, which is why we put protections in place for millions of people and small businesses. Under the new rules, customers will receive at least 90 days' notice and an explanation of any account closure, strengthening protections which prohibit banks from discriminating against someone based on their political opinions. Well, that rule change I can claim as a victory. You know, it will now be the code within banking that you can't be shut down for your political views, but still, I'm afraid, the way we interpret the threat of money laundering, well, I mean, I suspect next year it'll be another 500,000. Pubs! We love pubs. We often debate pubs on this show. There's going to be a U-turn from the government, and one, I think, that's good news.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The cold winds and the snow not just confined to the UK. In and around the Mediterranean, pretty blustery, and some heavy snow likely over the Alps. First really big dumps for some here of the winter. Some showery rain for the Algarve. It's generally fine in the Canaries. Showery rain moving into Italy and across Croatia and further south too for Greece. We'll continue to see the weather pretty mixed in Italy with further showers and some gusty cold winds to come. The weather remains pretty fine in Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Storm Goretti is battering the southern half of the UK, bringing heavy rain, some significant snow and damagingly strong winds to the southwest of the UK in particular. The low itself is tracking its way eastwards across southern parts, bringing a lot of unsettled weather. With that, there are a number of warnings out, including an amber for snow as we go through the night across Wales and the Midlands, but particularly a rare red warning for parts of Cornwall where gusts are exceeding 80 to 100 miles per hour, leading to some severe disruption here. As we go overnight, Goretti makes its way eastwards. As a result, the strongest winds in the southwest, they drop out, but we see further windy weather across southern counties, and that snow continues to build up across central parts with a lot of rain elsewhere across the south. Temperatures are dropping to around freezing across southern places. Further north with drier, clearer weather, temperatures similar to last night dropping into negative double figures across some places. Then through tomorrow, it's staying wet across eastern parts. There could even be some winteriness mixed in with the rain here, but nonetheless that rain could lead to some further flooding and travel disruption. Drier elsewhere, just a few showery outbreaks of rain, sleet and hill snow here and there, maybe some glimmers of sunshine, particularly towards the west, and temperatures for most on the low side. A chilly, cold day generally, especially in the north. Another cold day to come as we go into Saturday. Mostly dry, mostly bright for many places. Some showery bursts towards the west and also towards the east. Then worth bearing in mind later on as we go through the weekend, while Sunday starts dry and largely cold, we are going to see a weather system coming in from the west. And as that bashes into that cold air that we have across us, well, there's the potential for some further disruptive snow. We'll have more on that nearer the time. That's it for me. I'll see you again soon.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Keir Starmer and some Labour MPs have had trouble with pubs for some time. This may be slightly unfair, but here was the Prime Minister in Bath a couple of years ago.
That man is not allowed in my pub. Get out of my pub. Go on. Get out of my pub.
Well, that could happen to anybody. But the point was that Starmer wanted even harder and longer lockdowns. That's why the publican was enraged. But look, pubs have been closing. Beer taxes risen massively over the course of the last 15 years. Energy prices out of control in many buildings that aren't well insulated. And have a look at the figures here. The explosion in pub closures. And now the really big one is business rates going back to where they were or slightly worse than before the pandemic. And there's been a massive campaign fought on this, a lot of political pressure. Now we get it, that following on from winter fuel payments, 2 child benefit caps, welfare and disability reforms, employment rights bill, grooming gangs, trans women are women, you name it. Another U-turn, but this time a welcome one. There's going to be huge relief for pubs, at least on business rates. I'm joined down the line by Lorna Turnbull, landlord, or landlady actually, of the Bay Horse in York. It's a good day.
Well, the budget or the package hasn't been announced yet, so I'm pretty sceptical on how great Rachel Reeves is going to be. She hasn't got a good track record with those independent pubs so far.
No, that's true. And I mentioned a list there, you know, energy prices, beer taxes, etc. I mean, there are some that say, oh, the pubs are crying wolf, but just how difficult is it?
Oh, it's horrendously difficult. We thought, you know, after COVID, it did get worse. But we got to also go back to the fact it was also an industry that was in decline anyway. COVID accelerated it. There's no point in denying it. But the current government and its predecessor hasn't helped at all.
Now, a lot of young people, it seems, don't drink the way that young people did, certainly in my time. But there are now actually, to be fair, you know, you can sell some quite decent low alcohol or zero alcohol alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, they've been really popular on the market. Everything from no-alcohol stouts to lagers, even spirits. So, yeah, there's definitely scope for the, I suppose, breweries to develop that even further and take away from just the idea of a soft drink being a Coca-Cola or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, Lorna, you're right. We don't know the precise nature of this, but it seems there is a bit, at least, of good news coming. And we wish you well at the Bay Horse in York.
Thank you very much.
I read out just a list of a few of the U-turns. Seems,
yes.
It's on 2 pages now.
It seems to me... Yeah, I haven't got time to read them all. It seems to me that if leaders have a goal, they aim towards the goal, events happen, they might attack a bit one way or the other. But if you've got no goal, you just get blown around by events, hence all the U-turns.
Yeah, I mean, there are several of these U-turns, right, like you, that I welcome. Certainly on the winter fuel allowance, I think that was a mistake to actually try and take that away in the first place. I think dressing up, taking $5 billion off disability benefits as welfare reform was never going to cut it, because it's not welfare reform. And now a proper review is going on to actually sort that out. In this case, I think that it's a U-turn, certainly. What we don't know is quite how far the U they're actually turning.
No.
You've got restaurants, hotels, cafes, also in a similar
I think we
position.
can predict quite reasonably back to what was given during the pandemic as relief.
Well, I mean, probably not as much as that, on the
No.
basis that they got 75% off business rates during the pandemic. That was because they couldn't open, so that was never going to continue. That went down to 40%, which Rachel Reeves in the last budget said would end in April.
Yeah.
Then we hit the problem that we've got at the moment. So the question really is that the transitional relief that she brought in, they were expecting 20%, she gave 5%. Somewhere along the line, she's going to have to find the money to actually increase that. It's great for pubs. No, I mean, obviously, but we still don't know how great at the moment.
And pubs, I mean, it's such an important part of our national life.
It really is. It's part of our identity. It's part of our national identity. And I think part of the problem, these U-turns are often brought about because Labour's decision makers are so disconnected from ordinary people in this country, certainly those north of the Watford Gap. And, you know, it's this disconnect that's causing this major problem.
Well, I repeat the point I made earlier to Nigel, that I think it's because they don't quite know where they're going.
Well, possibly it's that. I mean, look, I'm a teetotaler. I think I'm more in touch with what publicans feel than you're not a teetotaler, I don't think, Nigel. But you know, you've got to understand, I think, if you're making these political decisions, what the corollary of that is going to be. For example, there's talk of reducing the alcohol intake before it becomes illegal, copying what Scotland has done. Yeah. Now, in rural areas, that will be a disaster for pubs, because what will happen then is you can't even have one pint without risking being over the limit. The pubs will end up closing because of that.
And a further assault on rural Britain.
There's good, I mean, as one teetotaler to another, there are good zero alcohol drinks now where people can still enjoy them in a pub.
I made that point. I can't mention the brands, but there are one or two that have become enormously successful. Yeah. And that is true. But it's just a feeling, Nigel, whether it's rural pubs, whether it's the trail hunt, the huge Boxing Day meets, that some of this government hates the rural areas.
Yeah. But I mean, the idea of actually restricting it to 1 pint or even less. I mean, if you're going to go drive a car, don't drink at all.
Oh, goodness me.
No.
Oh, dear, the Cromwellians are out in force today. Right, let's move on to something that really is important. This was Minister Sarah Sackman yesterday in the House of Commons talking about a huge reduction in your right to be tried in Crown Court by a jury.
And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, people ask me, Sarah, would you be doing this if there wasn't a crisis in our courts? And I say yes. Because we need a better system. We need a better system, one where courts, not criminals, triage cases. One that makes better use of jurors' time.
That was telling. That was telling. Michael Ellis, because we were told we're going to get rid of juries in many, many cases because there's too big a backlog.
Yeah,
that was said to me.
That was fake news.
That said to me, it's ideological.
It's ideological. Look, they said, and I've said on air before, they said it was due to the backlog. Many people who know and have worked in the courts, like myself, know it was never anything about the backlog. Juries are not responsible for the backlog. The backlog has been, frankly, due to a number of reasons, like a lack of investment in courts, courtrooms not sitting, not enough judges, an increase, by the way, in a lot of data evidence, digital evidence, which slows things down. Those are the reasons why the backlog has built up. Nothing to do with juries at all. I also think it's wrong when they say, the government says, oh, defendants game the system and they ask for a jury trial. Not in my experience, and I did it for 17 years. Most defendants, if they're charged with an offence, they'd much rather stay in the magistrate's court because they know the magistrates have lower powers of sentencing and they're scared of the consequences if they're convicted in front of a Crown Court judge. So I don't believe the earlier reasons given by this government. They're not correct. The Bar Council, the Law Society, I believe, have all said that. This is more like it. It's ideological. It's not wanting juries because they just don't think that they can trust the people.
And Nigel, people will say, well, look, you say something offensive on Facebook and you could finish up in court with, a trendy, very left-of-centre judge, sending you to prison for 5 years, whereas a jury would say, whoa, hang on a second, this person may have been over the top, it's too much. Do you see the fit?
Yeah, I do, but I also think that, the jury trials are actually incredibly rare. And only 10% of cases end up in the Crown Court. Only 3% of those end up with juries. So we're talking about something very, very small anyway. I do understand why they wanted to go down this road, especially when you're dealing with something like rape. Rape victims, 6 in 10 rape victims, abandon the case before it can ever get to trial because of the length of time it takes. What Labour promised during the election was special rape courts to actually end that. So what we're talking about is increasing court capacity, not taking away what I think is a basic human right to a jury trial.
One last thought on this. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But most cases are heard at magistrates' courts.
Yes, the vast majority.
But in a sense, that's a jury because there are 3 people who come from all different walks of life.
Usually, yes, there are 3 magistrates.
It's not just one person.
Not unless they're what used to be called a stipendiary magistrate or a district judge.
In most cases.
But you're right, in the vast majority of cases, it's 3 lay magistrates. And that is where 97% of cases are heard. We're talking about a tiny percentage that actually are effective trials before a jury. If they really were interested in getting earlier guilty pleas, start incentivising defendants to have lower sentences if they plead guilty. That would be one thing that might actually work. That's an incentive to give to a defendant. But interfering with an 800-year-old tradition to have a jury trial, it's more than a tradition, it's part of who we are as a people.
I worry about it. And I bet the vast majority of GB News viewers and listeners would agree with me that our judges do seem to be somewhat left of centre in the main. Now, we will finish up talking about the Ashes and British sport in general. We'll be joined by Monty Panesar. We'll ask what went wrong. Ben Stokes, this towering champion of English cricket. We went to Australia with such optimism. It's ended, well, let's be frank, in disaster.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Stop.
We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
We went to Australia with such hope. Yes, this was the time, truly, 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 after a 15-year gap, that we could get the Ashes. We could win on Australia. We've lost heavily 4-1. I'm joined by Monty Panesar down the line, former England Test cricketer, and, of course, somebody who's played a bit of Ashes cricket and knows what it's like to win. I mean, Monty, you know, Bazball, this new aggressive, amazing form of cricket, this warrior Ben Stokes leading us. What on earth went wrong?
Well, good evening, Nigel, and Happy New Year to you. Thank you for having me on your show. Yeah, it's been a complete disaster, let's be honest. You know, we had such high hopes, honestly. There was going to be this fairy tale ending at Sydney where, you know, where England win the Ashes 3-2, and with immediate effect as Ben Stokes lands in England, you know, he'll get knighted for being Sir Ben because, you know, he's been a brilliant captain and what he's done for, you know, Australia, for English cricket. But it's been completely the opposite. You know, it has not worked for them. They've been underprepared, like everyone talked about. And, you know, it was the fast, bouncy pitches. They lost the Ashes there, to be honest. And then after that, they adjusted. And, you know, we saw the warrior like Ben Stokes that he is, you know, produce some magnificent performances with the bat, with the ball. But in the end, the Australian team were just far better, physically, mentally, technically. And it's an opportunity miss, let's be honest, an opportunity miss by this England team.
Now, you know, this new coach came in, this New Zealander, Brendan McCullum. Let's make sure that Test cricket's not boring. Let's go and knock it out of the park with almost every delivery. Is that style of cricket? You know, to begin with, Stokes won 8 of the first 10 Test matches that he captained. Is that style of cricket now out? Will we go back to a more conventional form of cricket?
Well, I think that's going to be the biggest debate now. You know, they're going to be thinking, can England continue to play like this? And if they do, how much patience are the ECB will have with this? You know, because Brendan McCullum has said, he goes, I'm not going to listen to the bosses. I'm going to do it my way. And that could potentially mean that, well, if he's not willing to adjust or adapt in a way that, you know, the ECB bosses want, then it could potentially mean, you know, a new coach coming in as well. So he's got to show some adaptation. He's got to believe that his method, as well as collaborating, you know, with some of the, you know, the chairman and the CEO to think, well, how can we now make maybe room for some county cricketers, you know, to come in who've scored. You look at Australia, Jake Weatherall, he was one of the highest run getters in Sheffield Shield. He got an opportunity to play, and he did well. What about a county cricketer who does really well all season, and then he's got no room to play? You know, you got Zach Crawley. He's averaging 27 during the National Series. That, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. You know, you look at the top order with Ben Duckett and Zach Crawley. After every 7 to 8 overs, if you're number 3, you're going to be coming and batting. That's not good enough with this England team.
Well, do you know what, Monty? We argue on this show all the time for accountability from our politicians. And I think right now the paying public needs some accountability from the England cricket setup. Monty, as ever, a pleasure to have you. Now, my panel, not big cricket fans.
This is a cricket dunce corner.
but we do have World Cup football coming up this year in America. Trump's going to be front and centre of it. How much, Michael, do you think sport affects genuinely the mood of the nation, the feel about the government, how we're doing?
But it's crucial for 2 reasons. I think it really... People, you know, during Wimbledon fortnight... Everyone's suddenly playing tennis and watching. During, you know, when the cricket's on, when the World Cup football is on, it's Grand National Day. How many people have a flutter on Grand National Day who never bet 364 days? Exactly. So it's part of the makeup of the nation. But it's more important, actually, even than that. Economically, I think it's really important too, and I think that's what Trump realises.
And good for pubs.
It's good for pubs. But when Trump's so keen to get, I mean, is it because they gave him one of those big medals?
Oh, yes.
Oh, but he actually really wants the football over there.
No, he does.
Economically, it's powerful.
He sees what the Premier League's done. It is our biggest sporting export. Quite why it needs a regulator, I don't know. Our Prime Minister, Nigel, keen football fan,
Indeed.
Arsenal fan. He'll be praying we do well in the World Cup.
Yes.
Or will he still be Prime Minister by then?
I think he'll still be Prime Minister by then. The real problem for the World Cup is the price of the tickets to get there. I mean, the tickets are just outrageous. But, I mean, as Michael says, if we do well, that does lift the spirit of the nation.
It does. My panel, thank you. Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, is a keen cricket fan. It's been I was invited to go to the Sydney Test, and I was really thinking of going for this week. And then I realised after the second test, we just weren't anywhere near it. It's been bad, hasn't it?
It's been bad, and it's been our own fault. That's the problem. I have a feeling that they believed their own propaganda. It got off to such a good start. As you said, 8 of the first 10 matches won, and they thought they were invincible, and therefore the normal rules didn't apply. They didn't need to have fielding practice. The number of dropped catches was appalling. They didn't need to think.
Touch of hubris, perhaps?
The Smith-Labuschagne dismissal. When poor old Jonathan Agnew, I was listening to it, went, no! I've never heard commentary like that. The pain that poor old Jonathan was feeling at this point was quite extraordinary. So, no, it's just been hubristic, I think you're right, and very sad, actually, because we went out with such high hopes.
Yeah,
and
they got rather carried away. Now, Jacob, you're coming up with State of the Nation after the news.
Well, the Metropolitan Police banged to rights on diversity, that you employ people who fail vetting, you overrule the vetting, and of 100 people where they overruled the vetting for minority reasons to meet their quotas, 25 of them then turned out to behave improperly, some of them really, really seriously, and being given life sentences. So it's this diversity obsession is actually putting it at risk.
No, you're quite right. Now, before we go to the all-important weather, and in many parts of the UK, it really is the all-important weather right at the moment, I want to tell you this. GB News has now been the #1 news channel in this country for 6 months in a row. I want to cheer from my panel. Come on. And when you think of the absolute mockery, well, as I said once before in one of my previous careers, they all laughed at us. But I tell you what, they're not laughing now.
They ain't laughing now.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Storm Goretti is battering the southern half of the UK, bringing heavy rain, some significant snow and damagingly strong winds to the southwest of the UK in particular.